Good day, everyone. We are in Group 2 and we will be talking about affective assessment. So, I am Alea Daniel Jansi Capulia.
And I'm Angelica A. Canales.
I'm Apple Rose Arancana.
Valerie.
I am Grace Bukao.
I'm Angelica.
This is Abon Reyes Mulansa.
It's Arceli Arges.
And I'm Archel Amorin.
And I am the first reporter for this group. So, my assigned topic is what is affective assessment and why there is a need to assess affective domain. So, before we will dig deeper about it, let's just think first about these following questions. First, how do you feel doing mathematics? Or, what do you like in mathematics? Well, it's already known that your responses may vary. Like some may like the subject, or for the majority, that feeling is opposite. So if we deal with the measurement of feelings, attitude, or interest, we are into affective assessment. So what is affective assessment? So this type of assessment deals with the affect dimensions of student learning. The affective domain, from the Latin word affectus, meaning feelings, includes a host of constructs such as attitude, values, belief, opinion, interests, and motivations. They are the non-cognitive outcomes of learning that are not easily seen or explicitly demonstrated, or in other words, it deals with the individual's personality or temperament. So these non-cognitive outcomes can be assessed using different assessment tools used to measure affective learning that will be discussed later on. Well, we must take note that this type of assessment in this domain is not aimed to determine what the students have learned. Rather, it looks into how students feel while they are learning, how their learning experiences have influenced their emotions and future behavior. Now that we already have that knowledge about what is affective assessment, this time we will going to tackle about why there is a need to assess affective domain. So with the information about the student's affective characteristics, teachers will be able to individualize their approaches to students and reshape their lesson plan based on the identified needs of the students. Since teaching is not only imparting content knowledge that requires cognition, rather, it is also knowing and understanding students as learners and humans. Therefore, it is essential that teachers know the feeling of pleasure, enjoyment, or even anxiety that learners experience because these feelings will have bearing on their attitudes, motivation, and beliefs that will eventually be manifested in their future behavior. And also, it helps the teachers determine what steps need to be taken to help students achieve academic success. Knowledge of what students view, perceive, and feel as they are engaged in learning activities will guide teachers to improve their teaching strategies and enhance learning. Moreover, assessment in the affective domain is not only on the part of teachers to know information about students, since it is also useful for students themselves, as they can have self-awareness of their feelings, emotions, and attitudes, which can make them reflect on how they are in the process of learning. And by that, they can be able to track and monitor their progress and know what they are going to do to attain good performance in class. So this type of metacognition has proven to enhance learning and contribute to success in the academic test. Cognitive and affective assessment should work in tandem as what empirical studies have proven. It is because if the learners have that temperament to learn, then they will acquire such knowledge and absorb information easily since they have this spirit of eagerness to acquire such a learning. Furthermore, affective assessment can also provide supplemental information about a learning difficulty or behavior problem that affects student learning. For example, if the students feel nervous in just seeing numerical symbols and signs of operations, That information would help teacher know what approaches or interventions that they will do in order to help such learner cope with their difficulty, considering the fact that fear about mathematics will cause nervousness and possible lead to poor performance if not failure. So that low performance caused by the student's feelings towards the subject, and that it relates to the affective factor, which is the main focus of this affective assessment. Furthermore, according to Stiggins 2005, motivation and desire represents the very foundation of learning. If the students do not want to learn, then there will be no learning. Popham 2011 also contends that affective variables are often more significant than cognitive variables. It is because how can an individual acquire learning if he or she doesn't have that interest or motivation to do so? Or in other words, really dig deeper about how students feel towards such lessons or subject areas. Nevertheless, teachers need to deal with assessments and measurements of students' abilities in this domain, as students' attainment is a result of the functioning of his or her whole personality.
In the affective domain of learning, Rothwell et al. Developed a taxonomy of affective qualities that serves as a guide in doing an affective assessment. And these are: first is to receive. In this level of affective behavior, the learner demonstrates an awareness to the activity, or he or she is aware on what is happening around such that he gives his attention to the activity. For example, if the learner looks at his or her teacher during lecture, that shows awareness on learning stimulus. But if he or she is paying attention to his or her teacher, that indicates the willingness to receive the stimulus. So, in other words, to receive is the willingness to receive the stimulus or the information. Second is to respond. In this level of affective behavior, the learner reacts already to a stimulus or information that has been received. This is somehow connected to the first level. If the first level is the learner only paying attention to his or her teacher, here the learner already participates to the discussion and not merely listening. Third is to value. This is the level where the learner demonstrates commitment to an object, knowledge, or activity. The learner in this level has learned or internalized a set of values such that these values were manifested based on how he or she acts around. For example, are picking up trash even if no one told him or her to do so. Another, putting off lights after the class is done. Third, arranging the chair even if no one told him to arrange it. These are simple examples of valuing behaviors that we can see in the learner in this level.
So to continue the part of taxonomy of affective domain learning, if you see it in the screen or the text, we have here number 4, which is to organize. So the meaning of to organize is the learner has internalized and integrated his or her feelings, emotions, beliefs, opinions, and etc., resulting to occasions where new values and traits are emerged. So in this level, the learner is able to discern independently the right versus wrong, and he or she is able to make decision on what is more valuable based his or her own judgment. So I hope it's clear and understand not only in the thing sa, but as a whole trait, how to organize. So we've moved on to number 5. So number 5 is to characterize. So what is to characterize? So the learner demonstrates his or her beliefs and attitudes not only in a single event or situation but in a multiple events, showing consistency of the behavior that establishes an image of a character to the learner. And also, the behavior extends beyond the school setting and becomes part of his or her lifestyle. Like for example, like if if doing an experiment has instilled the value of patience, like such trait could be carried over the student's non-science activities. So we all know that to characterize is not only in one setting, but we should remember that the school is one of the most important thing that as a learner, or we as a learner, we can share or extend our own experiences or our lifestyle. So hope you understand the to characterize. So the next topic we will discuss is about affective variables of learning. So what is affective variables of learning? So it is a number of variables wherein it is used by affective assessment, and it is basically deal with how the students feel or think about the activity, the lesson, or the environment. And also in the education field, the most common variables for affective assessment are the following. So let us start. What is attitude? So attitude is a person reaction, whether negative or positive. Also in attitude, it is about affective factor in a student learning or attitude towards something. So in here also, we want to foster the positive attitudes, and also on the other hand, we also want to know the negative things, like for example, like cheating, bullying, um, fighting, drugs, and absenteeism, and also smoking. We should remember that it is important to note that attitude cannot be taken as solely affective. It is also have cognitive component where the learner has the content knowledge that defines the worth of value of the objective or situation. Like for example, knowledge about the effect of smoking on health, and knowledge about nicotine ideally should make students have negative attitude towards smoking. So we all know that if using cigarettes or nicotine is, we think about that negative side. And however, this is not always the case. One may have the knowledge, but applying the knowledge in other things. cognitive knowledge can just be a what you call this can be a contributing factor to affect a desired affective outcome.
Values and beliefs. Values are characteristics or traits that a person holds in high importance, while beliefs refers to our convictions or opinions we hold to be true even without evidence. Values are developed from beliefs. Beliefs, as well as values, can change over time from learned experiences. As such, it is important that teachers provide positive learning experiences to students, because from these experiences they form beliefs that lead to the formation of values that are desired. And these beliefs and values determine attitudes, which are correlated with the learner's performance. This sequential relationship reinforces the importance to assess these affective factors that can aid teachers in developing their instructional plan to attain intended curriculum goals and objectives. Interest, a psychological state that draws a person's attention to an object, idea, or event. In a classroom setting, it is what students are into or the learner's disposition about a topic. It is interest that drives the learner to be attentive to the topic of discussion or engage in any academic activity. And it is important for the teacher to know how students are receptive on the content that is covered in the lesson. If there is low interest, as revealed from the assessment results, the teacher can think of intervention strategies to address the problem, like creating learning experiences that are more exciting to engage students in interaction with peers or with teachers. Motivation, an inner drive, impulse, emotion, or desire that moves one to a particular action. It arouses and sustains behavior. It can lead to increased effort and energy to pursue a goal. If a learner is highly motivated, he or she is willing to give his or her time and effort to reach a goal. It brings a learner to excitement and enjoyment to an academic task and enhances cognitive processing and improves learning.
So the last one is self-confidence. It refers to how a person feels about his or her abilities to accomplish the task or reach goal. In education field, if the student is confident enough, it heavily influences the learner's choices and decision according to their positive perception. Like for example, if the student will personally think, I can do that task, in a way that confidence is a tool that helps the student to manage the given problem or challenges. In short, student who can maintain his or her positive attitude, they will most likely reach their goals and accomplish their task. It also make an impact or progress in teaching because by the use of self-confidence test on subject contents, we can make track to the topics they are weak in because it generally conceptualizes and provides a firm foundation for learning. Now, we're going to tackle what are those assessment tools used to measure effective learning. Measurement of effective traits is more challenging compared to measuring cognitive and psychomotor dimension of learning. This measurement could both direct or indirect. So, the difference between direct and indirect assessment is that when we say direct assessment, it involves looking at actual sample of student work, while indirect assessment is gathering information through means other than looking at actual sample of student work. The first assessment tool is self-report questionnaire. It is a type of assessment or any test questions survey that relies on individual own behavior, emotions, feelings, or views. It involves self-inventory type of assessment. It is easy to administer and subjective statement. That's why there's a possibility that the respondent can also be personally biased because he or she is responding to subjective or according to their own perception. It is popular in pre-test and post-design tests when a teacher wants to assess change towards their attitude, interest, motivation because it happens before and after instructional period.
Likert scale. Likert scale is a measuring with series of questions or items that requires the respondents to select on a scale a rating, reflecting on their level of agreement and disagreement on items that are related to a particular topic, experience, or issue. An example of Likert scale is shown before you. It is about the rating scales on views about the mathematics and the mathematics learning. And this time around, I am going to read the number 1, which states that mathematics is the study of formulas, rules, and procedures in solving problems. As you can see in the pictures, that the responses are both in descriptive and numeric form, range from one extreme to another, such as strongly agree to strongly disagree, where 5 is the numerical value of the extreme positive feeling, and 1 is for the extreme negative. This kind of scale gives a deeper insights into what the students are thinking or feeling.
Here are some guidelines that might be of help in creating your self-report assessment instrument. First, statements should refer to the present conditions rather than past or future situations. The statement should be relevant to the psychological construct being measured. Avoid factual statements since the nature of what is assessed are affective traits. Use statements that are objective in the sense that the respondent will not reveal their own opinion. Statements should elicit a response that lends itself to one interpretation. Statements should be clear and simple sentences using precise and direct language. Considering that responses in their instrument reflect graduation, statements should no longer contain always, nearly, only, never, and just. These words are ambiguous. Use vocabulary appropriate for the level of understanding of the respondents. Use words that are appropriate to your respondents. Lastly, avoid double negative sentences to avoid misunderstanding and misconception.
Steps in construction the rating scale. First, select the affective trait you want to assess, which you find relevant to teaching learning situation. Make sure that you or your school is going to benefit from it and use the data to improve the present situation. For example, you may be interested to know the effects or impacts on the students to the current situation of teaching and learning process. This inventory will not only help other struggling students, but also for the teacher, the school, and the administration to know how to help the students. Second, construct items that are clear, definite, and focused on the trait you want to measure. Consider the different levels of affective taxonomy in constructing the items. Since what you are assessing is on emotion or affect, items should include positive and negative positions that will make the respondent think carefully the answer to the item. Third, pilot test or field try the inventory and revise the parts that appear to be unclear. This is advised when you want to measure more encompassing and long-term effective learning outcomes. The purpose of field testing the instrument is to detect unclear questions and statements and procedural difficulties the intended respondents can experience with the questionnaire. It is preferred that field tests be given to a comparable set of students. If the inventory is intended for grade 6 students, then having another class of grade 6 to give feedback to the inventory will best suit the purpose of field testing. Fourth, administer the self-report inventory to your target respondents. It is advised that adequate time, like on power test, is provided for completion of the inventory. And lastly, analyze the results and consider the findings and draw the implication. The most common scale is 1 to 5, with 1 as the extreme negative option, followed by the less negative and mid-range rating, indicating the level of neutrality, through 5 being the highest or favorable response. For the negative items, the numerical values are reversed. The use of simple statistics is essential. This involves frequency count relative to each option in the scale, cumulative percentage to see pattern of responses in each item, as well as the entire scale. Simple computation mean will be useful in visualizing the collective outcome as a class or as a grade level or in the entire school. The most common way to treat data using Likert scale is to sum the values of the most selected option and determine the score for each respondent. The score represents a specific trait, agreed or not agree, satisfied or not satisfied, confident or not confident, etc. And if your intention is for classroom setting only, data analysis does not have to be complex and computation of score may not be the focus. The teacher may give more attention to patterns of responses vis-a-vis to the content and the essence of the affective items. Consequently, the teacher should be able to define the implications of the result to improve the learning environment.
Today, I will giving some sort of informations about semantic differentials and checklists. So, what is semantic differential? So, semantic differentials, it is commonly described as a widely used scale that employs rating of concepts while constructing adjective placed at the opposite ends of a number scale. So, semantic differentials, it is used in conducting a survey where they ask our respondents to rate a particular product, topic, subject, and many more. And also, semantic differentials is used in measuring a connotative meaning of a thing. For example, and asking your students to rate a particular situations like problem solving. So, semantic differentials is in charge in informing us about the result or the answers about what students really feels about problem solving. And if you ask me about what semantic differential look like, well, it has two opposite ends where an adjective is placed on it. For example, in the left side, the word difficult is placed on it, while the other side is easy. And the other side is interesting, and the other side is boring or less interested. So, to sum up this information, semantic differentials is used to gauge people's feelings about or towards a particular subject. So how about checklist? So checklist, it is a form of a self-report that used to ask our respondents whether they indicate or demonstrate a set of qualities or behavior. So checklist, it is used in identifying people's feeling, attitude, qualities, and behavior. And those behaviors and qualities that are checked are the reflections of the respondents' beliefs and values about the particular matter.
Now we are down to the second assessment tool, which is the interview. An interview is an oral assessment of student learning conducted through spoken words and casual conversations. Through interview, we get to gather more in-depth information about the trait being assessed that cannot be conducted by a written document nor even be observed. Here, the teacher can have a direct interaction with the student. Both the teacher and the student can expand or add up something to the conversation, allowing an open sharing of thoughts and ideas between them. Thus, it is important that both the teacher and the student trust each other and that they both demonstrate care and respect all throughout the interview. There are two types of interview, the structured and the unstructured interview. For the structured interview, there is a planned sequence of questions that guides or controls the interview process. This type tends to limit the flexibility of the teachers in adapting questions and students' responses. On the other hand, the unstructured interview is a natural approach to the students. It creates a friendly environment where students can freely express his or her feelings, emotions, and ideas to the teacher. Also, it is important to prepare a record sheet or any form to record students' responses in order to gain the information or to sum up the information that are necessary for the assessment of student learning. Now we move on to the third assessment tool, which is the student journal. Student journal is a special form of documentation that records personal experiences and thoughts. It is a reflection of learners' own perception about a problem, a situation, or an activity they are tasked with. It allows students to open up or to express their thoughts, feelings, and emotions by writing it all down. Through the student journal, the way of thinking of the student is revealed both on the cognitive and affective aspect. It allows the teacher to get information from the student and in turn help the teacher to give feedback to the latter. The last but definitely not the least assessment tool is the observation. Observation is an assessment tool that involves looking out for the presence or the absence of behaviors of learners in a natural setting. It allows teachers to assess students' behavior in the actual teaching and learning process, unlike the other forms of assessment that require separate time with the student to answer the measuring instrument. Like the interview, there are two types of observation, the structured and the unstructured observation. The unstructured observation has no formal recording of what is observed as assessment process is ongoing. There is still a need to record observed data right after the actual observation time. On the other hand, the structured observation needs a preparation of a checklist or rating form before the observation that will define both the negative and positive behaviors indicative of the trait you wish to measure. That's it, and I hope that the assessment tools are clear and understood. Thank you, and God bless us all.